Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and Kawasaki has a Supermoto version of their dual sport, the KLX 300 SM. This is going to be a fun bike to ride around town, kind of have that lightweight, sort of spunky dirt bike experience, but do it with better brakes and better tires suited for the street. So if you plan on using a KLX 300 SM for your daily rider, what sort of fuel economy can expect? That's what we're going to test out here today on the DM Commuter Fuel Economy Test. I'm going to take this KLX 300 SM, we're going to go out for a ride, we're going to do just about 43 miles, I believe is what we've got on the test. We're going to do a mixture of slower speed riding, medium speed, and highway riding, and we're going to see what sort of fuel economy we can get on this bike and compare it to some of its sort of lighter weight, more affordable competitors. We've done this test with the Honda CRF 300L Rally. That one got about 75 MPG out of its just under 300cc single-cylinder motor. So I would think this one stands to do better. I mean, we've got tires with less rolling resistance, we've got a little bit less weight, and we've got a little bit less aero drag because no windshield on the KLX 300 SM. So this should be getting well over 70 miles per gallon, if not breaking into the 80s. However, the instrumentation is much simpler on the KLX 300 SM than it is on the Honda. So if you see, bringing it to life, not only do we not have any sort of distance to empty or average fuel economy readout, we don't even have a fuel gauge. So we've got about a 2-gallon tank in here, I think it's just over 2 gallons, and fuel injection, but no sort of idea of what sort of fuel economy I've been getting. That being said, I haven't gotten the best fuel range on this bike. I've traveled 75 miles on this tank, and I already had the fuel light come on just briefly. It turned back off, so I think we should be okay, but I don't know. Based on my riding, hasn't been the most outstanding fuel economy, but I also haven't necessarily been the easiest on this bike. So I'm really curious what we're gonna get today. Now, a few other things to note for the test. We've set the tire pressures to their placard, 33 PSI rear and 29 PSI front. That's cold. The temperatures are pretty warm today. We're looking at, I think it's about 85 degrees ambient right now. That's Fahrenheit. But once we get down toward the water, it should cool off a little bit theoretically, but it's also getting later in the day. So I think mid-80s are gonna be what we're getting for most of the riding here today. And I'm gonna ride as though one might on their way to the office in the morning or riding to school or something like that. I'm not gonna ride like a hooligan, but I'm gonna take off confidently from lights, and I'm gonna get up to the speed limit and try to stay within roughly 5 miles per hour, plus or minus, of the posted speed limits on our test. So if you do want to see more on the KLX 300 SM, check the link below for our full review. But without any further ado, let's get this thing out on the test. Turns out I was not mistaken. We are getting the fuel flashing light at just about 75 miles on this tank. And some of that's been highway riding, but again, that's a lot of filling up. But I understand that the Supermoto is made a little bit more for kind of more tracky sort of things and kind of shorter fun rides rather than longer hauls, but still something to consider if you plan on riding this regularly. We just put in 1.423 gallons after that 75 miles, so that kind of gives you an idea of what sort of fuel economy we've been getting, the way I've been riding it. But this one will be a little bit of an easier ride. Now, one nice thing about this motor is that you only have to put in unleaded regular fuel. No need for 91 octane on this. We are back and fueled up after what turned out to be a pretty toasty ride. Down by the coast it was nice, but we're well up into the 90s. I bet it was getting toward 100 as we were getting through a little bit of the inland part of the county. But the KLX 300 SM did well. One of the reasons I like doing this test is, yes, to get the fuel economy number, since there's no sort of publishing or testing agency here in the United States that tests motorcycles for fuel economy, but also it's a great opportunity for me to test all of our motorcycles in identical conditions. It's a route that I'm used to, and I'm just going out driving, I'm considering the bike, I'm sitting on the saddle for about an hour and a half or so, and I can report for the KLX 300 SM, the fact that you can move around a good bit does help sort of alleviate the firmness and the narrowness of the seat. Certain butts are going to be a little bit more comfortable than others on there. I find myself getting a little antsy around 45 minutes or so, depending on which riding pants I'm wearing and kind of the heat. But fortunately, you can stand up pretty easily on the SM. So yeah, being a commuter sort of bike, really not too bad. Also, if you're in an area that you can legally lane filter. I know we have a few extra states with the ability to do that now. The width of the KLX 300 SM and the lightness, the ability to throw it around, does help for lane splitting and lane filtering and getting through traffic nice and easy. Getting to fuel economy, we put in 0.664 gallons into the fairly small tank here on the 300 SM. It's a 42.9 mile route, so 42.9 miles divided by that 0.664 is giving us 65 miles per gallon. That's 3.64 liters per 100 kilometers for my metric unit folks here for the KLX 300 SM, which is a little bit surprising to me, especially considering that heavier and less aerodynamic Honda with a very similar motor got such a more positive result. I mean, statistically speaking, that's still not huge. They're still both very fuel efficient. It's not like this one's going to cost you all that much more in gas, especially since you only have to put 87 octane in here. But again, just with the slimmer profile, the tires, the lighter weight, I would have expected a little bit more. But that does fall in line, like I said, with the experience I've been having in the real world with the bike, in that I just find myself having to fill it up pretty darn frequently. You've only got a 2-gallon tank that you're working with here on the 300 SM, so 2 gallons times that 65 miles per gallon is giving you an effective real-world range of only 130 miles. Again, a little bit in line with what I've been seeing, getting the low fuel light coming on somewhere in between 75 and 100 miles, depending on how you're riding, and then that's going to get you a little bit further and get you back to the gas station. But this being a fuel-injected bike, you're not getting the little petcock emergency tank that you might have had on older versions of this bike or similar bikes. So keep that in mind. When it's telling you to get fuel, you gotta get fuel. So, can you commute on the KLX 300 SM? Absolutely. It's lightweight, it's fun to putz around on and pop about. It's easy to get around traffic, and as long as you don't mind hitting the gas station fairly regularly, it's not a big deal. In fact, I would even recommend just getting yourself a 5-gallon jerry can at home, and then you can just make sure this thing's topped off before you head out to work each day, or maybe every 2 days, depending on your commute. I would be curious to get the dual sport version of the KLX on this test. I mean, with the knobbier tires and a little bit different gearing, you might be looking at below 60, which is a little bit disappointing for the weight of the bike, but it's just something to consider. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the KLX 300 SM, check the link below. We got our full review, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, ride on.